Okay, Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to try a second video now. As you see, I've got that. Now this side's hurting. I'm like, okay, I don't know. Okay. Anyway, I'm trying to help us make the connection between Babylonia, Nimrod, the occult, later the church in Turkey, Asia Minor at that time, Pergamos, why it is the seat of Satan, why that is significant. I'm going to talk about Antipas real quick here, because Jesus mentions his faithful servant Antipas. John wrote this revelation, I think, probably just a few years after the death of Antipas. Antipas was killed in, I think it was 92, he was martyred, 92 AD, I think. I had talked about the city of Pergamos, big metropolis, very pagan festivals, human sacrifice, pagan sexual rituals, I mean, just the whole deal. But culture, commerce, science, Greek thought, Hellenistic thought, lots of intellect, basically very anti-God, anti-Christ. So as one article said, Satan was very comfortable there. It was very comfortable. You had the temple of Zeus, who is kind of the alpha god of Greek mythology. You had the temple of Zeus overlooking the city on what's called, I guess, the Acropolis. There was a bull. Here is how Antipas, he was an elderly Christian bishop. This is how he was martyred. At that time, Rome required that you consider the emperor divine. And if you did not worship and consider the emperor divine, you would be killed, martyred. So of course those in the church couldn't be in agreement with that. That's idolatry. That's a false god. Okay. So Antipas was placed in this bull, which was like, I guess it was like 40 feet high or something, up there in the temple of Zeus, overlooking the city. This bull was used for human sacrifice. I don't know if they placed him through the mouth. I'm not sure how that works. But he would basically, the person being sacrificed would be in the belly of that bronze bull. And they would set a fire underneath, and that person would roast to death. And as they screamed and cried in agony, burning to death, roasting, the sounds would come out of that bull through these kind of like pipes or holes in its head. And it would create an illusion that that bull was alive. Kind of like it was snorting or bellowing. Or roaring. So as the people screamed, the bull seemed to come alive. Now, apparently, as Antipas was dying, he was praying for his church while he was in the belly of that bull being sacrificed. So that's why Jesus made a point of remembering this guy who was martyred for his faith. And he tells the church, he's saying, I know that you've stood after this thing happened. Basically, he says, thus says the one who has the sharp two-edged sword, I know where you live, where Satan's throne is. Yet you continue to hold firm to my name. And you did not deny your faith in me, even in the days of Antipas, my faithful witness, who was killed among you, where Satan resides. I have a few things against you. You have some there who hold to the teaching of Balaam, who was teaching Balak to put a stumbling block before Bnei Israel, or whatever, which is the house of Israel, to eat food sacrificed to idols and commit sexual immorality. Likewise, you also have those who hold to the teaching of the Nicolaitans. Okay, this was all about food sacrificed to idols, sexual rituals, sacrifices, pagan rituals. That's what all this stuff was. And I think back in Numbers is a story of Balaam and Balak, whatever. You know, they tried to seduce the Jews with divination, and that didn't work. So then they sent them the Moabite women to seduce them and marry them to pull them away from their God. I'll have to look that up. Okay, I haven't read that or heard that in a long time. But repent then, if not, I'll come to you soon and make war against them, meaning those in those practices within the church, I think, with the sword of my mouth. Okay. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Ruach, which is the Spirit, is saying to Messiah's communities. To the ones who overcome, I will give some of the hidden manna and give him a white stone, and written on the stone a new name that no one knows except the one who receives it. And I'm not sure what that means. I haven't looked it up. And my jaw hurts too much and I'm too tense to even try. Okay, so that's how Antipas died. That was human sacrifice. Now, you know how sometimes, like, when I'm preaching to myself, I can really articulate and organize these thoughts. And then when I start recording, it's like, okay, I guess there's so much I want to say. I want to talk about this temple. We're going to go back to Babylon Nimrod, which is super duper important because that is the origin of this kind of stuff. This anti-God, anti-Christ, pagan worship, rituals, all of this. It goes back to that. But I want to talk about this temple of Zeus and power shifts. How this temple of Zeus in Turkey, where, you know, where it says Satan's throne was, where he's seated, he's pretty comfortable. The master, the lord of the house, that chair, that throne was for the master and lord of the house. His personal inhabitation. His personal habitation. He could be comfortable there. So he had a stronghold there, obviously, with that temple being there. And the human sacrifice bull being there. And they probably did the Moloch thing there too. I don't know. You know, where you pass the children under the fire. It's this creepy looking thing. So something I want to point out is a power shift. Satan's throne was in Babylon originally. Nimrod, Babel. Babel means confusion. Nimrod means rebel, although I've also seen that it means mighty hunter. They say he could have been a Nephilim, meaning a, you know, where the angelic spirits came down and mated with the women and all that. Don't know that, but he was the grandson of Ham, who was the son of Noah, that it says exposed his father's nakedness. Now, that does not mean he pulled a blanket and saw his dad naked or had sex with his dad. I absolutely do not believe that. Probably more likely he had sex with his mother. That's uncovering the father's nakedness because they're one. You know, that's that holy sacred thing there. There was a curse put on Ham's descendants. So Ham's grandson Nimrod was a major rebel. And he had 3 agendas. He wanted to build, I guess he had conquered 7 cities. He wanted to build an empire or nation or a city, whatever, a huge strong, whatever, right? He wanted to have his name remembered. Isn't that the ego, right? He wanted to make a name for himself. Now, who's influencing him? I think we know who. And he wanted to make a new religion. All right. I'm going to leave that back. Let's leave that history alone. And let's talk about this temple of Zeus. Now, there was also 3 other temples dedicated to the Roman emperor, or the Caesar, whatever. And there was also a Roman temple dedicated to the goddess Athena. Now, we need to remember this kind of stuff because this stuff crept into Christianity when pagan worship of the Romans married into the pure church and became Catholicism. Where do you think we get the Queen of Heaven? Did you know the whole idea of the Queen of Heaven goes back to Babel? Absolutely. Nothing is new under the sun. So this is early, not the first, but Babel was one of Satan's big interventions to try to affect bloodlines, to affect human history, to pull people away from God, to bring destruction, to bring rebellion, to make man think he really can be God. To make man forget he is a creative being created for God's glory. Okay? That's the agenda here. What I want to point out to you is what I found was that this place of human sacrifice, this bull, this temple of Zeus up in the Acropolis, in the 1800s, when the Turks, the Ottoman Empire, were the big empire of the time, were the leading empire in the known world at that time or whatever, and they basically owned this, what was left of this temple. I think the ancient city was probably in ruins, but whatever was left of this temple or this altar, whatever, of Zeus, was in the hands of the Turks, the Ottoman Empire. And in the 1800s, German archaeologists asked for it, and the Turks gave it to them. German archaeologists dismantled this thing stone by stone, this idol, this altar, this place of human sacrifice and worship of Zeus, and they took it to Berlin, Germany in the 1800s. In 1930, the Pergamon Museum opened in Berlin, Germany. Is this starting to make sense? Hitler sees this thing, finds out about it, whatever, and has his Nazi architect, recreate it in Nuremberg, kind of like create a podium like this temple of Zeus or whatever, kind of a copy, a replica, design it in Nuremberg so that he would address the masses in the evenings. And these crowds would listen to them. It says here, there was something about fire, okay? There was something about fire. Hold on. It was called the Zeppelin Tribute, the grandstand in Nuremberg. This was Hitler's podium. He would do this at night, and the fire of whatever this replica was created would cause people to look into the sky. He wanted to create mass experience. Now, whether that means Catholic mass or just a mass of people, an experience, he wanted to mesmerize the people. He wanted it solemn, ceremonial, like a Catholic service. It was called Cathedral of Light. Mystical. So basically, what is this? Mesmerizing. He's wanting to seduce them, put them in a trance, something mystical. This is occult activity. It says, thousands of Germans swore a holy oath saying, blazing flames hold us together into eternity. In 1935, there was a movie made about Hitler where actually, at the beginning, apparently he comes through the clouds, descending like a Messiah, like a Savior. That was 1935. And it said that movie was shown repeatedly for like 12 years. So don't you find that interesting? The seat of power moved from Babylon, Babel, the origin of occultic activity, to Turkey, and then to Berlin, Germany, in Europe, from east to west. I'm going to say one more thing and then I'm going to end this video. And I'll have to do another one. His final solution was presented there with his replica of Zeus's temple or whatever, this Zeppelin tribute. What his final solution was presented there in that environment, in that altar of Zeus. He announces his final solution, the Holocaust. Do you know what Holocaust means? A holy, W-H-O-L-L-Y, like completely burnt animal sacrifice. Just like the bull. Only this time it was the Jews. God's chosen people to be a light and to carry his truth, his light, his righteousness to the nations. To be an example. So of course he wants to kill him. Satan wants to kill him. So think about that. Isn't that interesting? The Holocaust, a holy burnt sacrifice from that altar of Zeus, the final solution. And we know people were sent to those chambers to die. They were sacrificed like a human sacrifice. They were scapegoated. So I'll stop there. I really have to stop there. 18 minutes. Okay.